Welcome to the Show Me KC Schools podcast. I'm your host, Nina, the Director of Programs and Events for Show Me KC Schools. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. This is another episode in our special education series, and this series has included information and personal experience to help families who are trying to navigate the complex world of special education. We want to continue that momentum and take some time to talk about special education and what it looks like as students are transitioning into adulthood. Today, I'm joined by Kim Rowley, the founder of the Transition Academy here in Kansas City, Missouri. The Transition Academy is a nonprofit organization created to improve post-secondary outcomes for high school special education students in the Kansas City, Missouri Public School District and in charter schools. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so excited to talk about this. I know that before recording, we had a quick conversation just to kind of go over some of the things that are really important to families. So I hope that we can capture that today. I want to start with asking you to tell us a little bit about the work that you do with the Transition Academy.
We basically do real world learning for special ed students. We make sure that students with IEPs and 504 plans get hands-on experience and that we prepare them for the workforce or for college.
Okay, that's amazing. So as families are preparing students who are in high school to transition after high school, what are some of the things that you would suggest families should be considering or planning for during that period while their student is currently in high school?
I would say they should definitely work on making sure that that they understand what their child's interests are and how to connect those interests to a career path. So often people think, a student with disabilities, maybe we'll prepare them for a custodial job or dishwashing. They don't really take the time to let that child test drive opportunities and discover their talents. So I would say, first of all, believe in your child and your child's potential and help your child explore what his or her dreams are and then take it from there.
What would you say are opportunities that families can test drive that? Like, are there people at the school that they need to be bringing into that process? Are there things that they should be doing outside of the school? What can that look like?
I would say make it as natural as possible.
Okay.
If you're noticing that they love to hang out in the kitchen with you, then, help. Okay, let's work on baking today. Okay, well, tomorrow we'll work on lasagna. If your child, even if your child, like my son's in Boy Scouts, and I would have never introduced him to power tools, but a dad introduced him to power tools and his eyes lit up.
Wow.
Make sure your child has a village where they're just like, hey, let's try this. And I just don't think it needs to be academic at all.
Okay.
I think it just needs to be common sense and real world, just like we learn how to work. I learned how to work by braiding my cousin's hair and babysitting. It wasn't that deep. And so for some reason with special ed, they make everything like it's brain surgery, and it's really not that deep.
I think that's helpful because sometimes we can overcomplicate things, whether students are in special education or not. We make it, we've had conversations about real world learning and how that's pushing into classrooms. And I think that's all great, but I appreciate your feedback around like some things are common sense. And so we get a lot of opportunities just day to day to engage our children. And so we need to be mindful of continuing to do that with students, whether they have special needs or not. I do want to talk a little bit about the options that are available. And I know you all host an annual fair to kind of help families explore some of those options. Just for our listeners who may be in that space where they're just kind of limiting their thought, and to your point, thinking about custodial work or working at a grocery store, what are the options for students who are in special education? What do those options look like post-secondary?
Well, many of them, because there are a range of ability levels. So some may simply have an invisible disability, and they may be able to get a job or get in college pretty much like their peers. Students who have IEPs and 504 plans who desire to go to college, there's no reason why they can't pursue that passion. Once they get in college, there's the Disability Access Office. So they should, just like they would go to admissions and they would access financial aid, they need to access that Disability Access Office to make sure they have accommodations. For example, maybe they need more time on the test. Maybe they need someone to take notes for them. They're just a range of supports, and that Disability Access Office is a way to do that. Some students have pretty significant disabilities. There are such things as job coaches.
Okay.
So a job coach can pick the child up from school or from home, take them out into the community to test drive different opportunities to just see what he or she likes to do, and then take the child home. So that transportation is kind of built in with job coaching.
And how do families access the job coaching?
They really have to be in the system. They need to go through, fill out the right paperwork so they can have like Medicaid waivers and specific customized government benefits.
Okay. So when we're thinking about employers, are there things such as different accommodations that we should be looking at or talking to employers about? What's that balance for the parent trying to support their growing to adult child, moving into the workspace? What does that transition look like? And are there things that families should be doing when accessing certain employers or giving them updates or meeting with them about anything, perhaps accommodations and things like that?
The best thing a parent can do is really reach out to their network. So if they have a family friend let's say they're out and about and they see their child is really like gravitating towards, there was one kid, Joe, whose family, his dad, they were at a festival and his dad saw them making kettle corn and said, I bet Joe could do that. He just went up to the guy, set up a quasi apprenticeship. Joe really took to it. The next thing you know, Poppin' Joe's popcorn came into existence. Of all the things that are technical and just cumbersome with special ed, the job preparation part does not have to be.
Okay. That's really helpful. I know you mentioned government benefits and things like that, and I feel like that's something that often comes up with families. What would your advice be to families trying to navigate the space of trying to make sure that their child that's growing into adulthood with special needs is financially secure, and then also navigating the disability benefits process?
I would first of all tell them not to go at it alone, to contact the Transition Academy. We literally connect our families with experts who can guide them every step of the way, because the processes are long. They are not intuitive at all. And so we just don't believe that you should have to go at it alone. And so we have those supports in place.
Okay. And that's something we're going to include in our show notes. We'll make sure to provide the information for Transition Academy and the website contact information so that families can access you all and follow up for those that are needing that support. So when we're talking about students growing into adulthood, I also imagine that one of the things that families really think about is just ensuring that their adult child is going to be okay whenever they are not here with them. And so I know one of the things that I've overheard coming up is this idea and planning around guardianship. What's your recommendation for families on what to think about as they're entering into that process of preparing for potentially a guardianship or some other type of plan for care for their adult child with special needs?
Yeah, when a child hits 18, is he or she is no longer a child. He or she is an adult and is able to make all decisions independently. And some you are doing just fine. There are a variety of options, including guardianship. But people used to think strictly like that guardianship was the only option. But there are a variety of options. And so I would say that for example, we at the Transition Academy, we connect our families with some experts and they can explore what makes sense for us and make the decision that's right.
And typically that's going to be based off of, I'm assuming, like the needs of the family, the needs of the individual.
Yeah, it's very personal to each family.
Okay. Okay.
Whatever makes sense.
Are there any words of encouragement or any thoughts that you would give to families who have high school students or possibly emerging high school students with special needs or entering into special education around how to prepare for the transition into adulthood?
I would say there are a lot of, it can be overwhelming because, again, your child has only known school since your child is like 2 or 3. That's the only system they've known. And now all of a sudden they're going to just be kind of like cast out and, into this brave new world. But I would just say that one of the things that we at the Transition Academy, the whole reason why we exist is that we have to normalize this process. We, with general ed kids, we do not just tell them to figure it out.
Right.
We guide them through FAFSA. We have college visits. We guide them through every step of the way for college prep, through, whether they're preparing for the military. So we want to do that same thing for these youth. And so our process is very holistic. So we're looking at, in addition to college and career prep and exploration, we're looking at also having social workers on staff.
Oh, wow.
And making sure that they understand their triggers so that they can manage like anxiety and any other issues that they have because we know that if they have a meltdown or if they, aren't able to understand their mental health and social emotional issues, then none of the other resources that we have are going to be effective.
Right.
And so I would say the earlier the better. Again, believing in your child and your child's potential, and then making sure that you connect with the Transition Academy. So that you can have the supports and have that built-in system. You're not alone, and you shouldn't have to go at it by yourself.
That's amazing. What age do you typically start to work with families? Can families call you if they have a middle schooler? Is there a certain age or grade that you typically start to support and offer services for?
We specialize in 11th and 12th graders.
Okay.
At age 16, their IEP, they have to have, the federal law requires there to be a transition meeting as part of that IEP meeting. And so we make sure we start at that age. And then also, that's also that age where they're shifting really from adulthood. So when they're 18, they're going from youth to adult services. And so that's our sweet spot. We do get others who are asking, like, how early can we start? And so we're looking at doing some programming to support youth
in the earlier years.
And even those who graduated and who were out of school after we were formed, who are needing to come back, we're looking at how can we support them.
Who didn't get that support before that transition.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I could imagine that's a lot. Well, I want to thank you for coming with us today and talking to us a little bit about Transition Academy and the work you do and giving this amazing advice to families. For our listeners, we are going to include the information to the Transition Academy and some of the other resources that we've shared on some of our other special education podcast episodes. Feel free to always connect with myself at Show Me KC Schools, and we'll include the contact information from Ms. Kim Riley and her team at the Transition Academy. Thank you again so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Show Me KC Schools is committed to providing you with vital information that supports you while you support your child on their educational journey. Connect with us on social media at SMKCS and on YouTube at Show Me KC Schools and on all your favorite podcast platforms.